Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this TSARMS webinar, Journey to Impact, exploring our work with the grantees in South Africa. I'm really grateful to everyone who has joined us today for the panel. We have Lorraine Yoko, who is the chairperson for Kazimula Children's Project. We have Sister Peg, who's recently moved back to the US and was in South Africa for quite a while. She's founder of St. Joseph Preschool, another one of our grantees. We have Joanne Baker. She is the founder of TSARMS, now 21-year-old nonprofit. And Belinda Stewart-Burger, who's vice president of the board of TSARMS, also a nurse navigator at Hoag Hospital. And we're so happy to have all of you here. So now I would like for you to introduce yourselves a little more and also to share about the grantees that you worked at or are a part of. So we'll start with Sister Peg, if you could share about your experience and introduce yourself briefly.
My name is Peg O'Shea. I'm a Catholic sister. I spent 30 years in South Africa. I went there for 1 year, but it got extended. At the time that I arrived, Nelson Mandela was already in office or about to be. I think about to be because we went to the election as observers. And after he was in office, he suggested that every church in the whole country open preschools because the children had been deprived since 1948 of the best education possible. So after checking with a few people around, the Methodist Church had a preschool. I went and talked to them. I said, I'm not trying to take your place since Howick isn't a big place. And if you've already got the corner on preschools. But the principal there told me, no matter how many preschools we'd open in the Howick area, there would never be enough. So we started on a farm, but after 1 year, only 5 children could get to the farm. So I went back to the Methodist and they told me, since you're a sister, why don't you go to the squatter camp? Because no one else will go there. Now I was young and naive, so I thought it'd be fine. But after 1.5 years, my teacher, I won't say what race, but she wasn't the same race as the children at the school. We had about 30 children. She told me that in Zulu, the people are saying that they should be running the school, not this teacher, that they were going to shoot her. So I went back to the parish and told the priest, I have this project, but I'm going to have to close it tomorrow. And he said, well, then open up in our parish hall because nobody's doing anything there and you can have it. So that's how I stayed for 29 more years.
Wow.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I don't know if you know that we've been advocating for an African Preschoolers Day. So
An African what?
African Preschoolers Day.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so hopefully that will make it some sort of difference. Yeah, and see, Thomas just joined us. Hi, Thomas. Thanks for joining. Now, Lorraine, if you'd like to share about yourself briefly and
Sure.
Andrew.
Hello to everyone. My name's Lorraine Yoko. I think TSARMS has been involved with Kazimula longer than I have, but the way I found Kazimula was through another nonprofit, basically in the States, that was looking, to fund. They had some money. They were looking for an organization that they could assist, just a once-off. And My son had started at a boarding school in KZN, and I'd attended an evening where they were raising funds for his boarding house outreach project, and Kazimula was the project. And I was blown away by the fact that there was this organization working with kids in so close to the school. So because I had a lot of time, I was no longer had a full-time job in advertising, and I spent a lot of time down in the Midlands. I had the time to go and visit Kazimula, and the rest is history for me. My son's no longer at boarding school, and yet I am fully committed and just want to work and try and impact the lives of the children that we care for at Kazimula, which is actually a children's home for vulnerable children that they are brought to us by the state, and they've all experienced traumatic beginnings in their lives, whether it be due to poverty, the effects of AIDS, they're orphaned, abandoned, and sadly, very, very sadly, a lot of them have been abused. Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell, where I'm at.
Thank you, Lorraine. Joanne.
Wow. It's really hard to summarize all of this. But anyway, my name is Joanne Baker. I am the founder of Tears Arms. I went on a trip in 2001 with a doctor friend of mine to South Africa. She was attending a health conference, and I had no idea that we would see the devastation of AIDS. There were no yellow pages for help groups. There was no antiretroviral treatments. It was just chaos, and hundreds, thousands of people were dying daily. And they were mostly parents and, the 30 and 40-year-olds, doctors, nurses, teachers being wiped out and leaving these orphan children or abandoned children. And I came back thinking, gosh, what can I do? I'm an operating room nurse, but I threw a fundraiser. I threw a birthday party for my 50th birthday, hoping to raise some money, a one-time thing, and was astounded at the support. People stepped forward to form a board, and bit by bit, we found groups that were struggling for funding, small groups that we could be intimately involved with, watch the children grow, which we have done. And now, like Lorraine, I'm committed for the rest of my life in any way I can, along with an incredible board and volunteer base that we just raise funds every year, and we grow and grow and grow a little bit every year. But it's to see these groups thriving, and we'll talk more about it. I know Margaret is going to moderate us, but that's basically my story. I'm a retired operating room nurse, but I'm a full-time Tears Arms founder.
Nice.
Thank you, Joanne. Yep, 21 years going strong. So, B, if you'd like to share.
Sure, I can share. So it's really quite a kind of I'm hoping serendipitous story in terms of my meeting Joanne. But having been born and raised in South Africa, my first introduction to the devastation that HIV had caused was in the early 1980s. I had a good friend who was a social worker by the name of Colin van Rooyen, and I think he has his own nonprofit, but he just had a heart for these children. He just kept bringing these children in. He would go and meet the container ships where they would, he would go and get shoes for these children. And then he was friends with two other good friends of mine who actually ended up passing away of HIV. And of course, this all came to the head in the 80s when I was doing my midwifery. And it was this, I remember one of my nursing tutors there was no social media, there was no cell phones, there was nothing. She had every article that she could possibly find on this strange disease plastered all over her office wall, because we didn't know, right, the extent of it. We didn't know what caused it. But we very, very soon, as I wrote in my blog, you know, the little graveyards that we would always go play in and run around in, and how it very soon were just covered in these makeshift white crosses. So this was a disease that, of course, impacted, and many of my friends passed away as well. And so when I immigrated to the United States, of course, I was left with this heart and this soul that was partly empty. And sure enough, it was quite by chance that I met Joanne. A friend of mine met her and said, "Oh, you have a South African accent. Where are you from?" Joanne said, "Oh, I won't bother to tell anyone, you know, a little town in South Africa, Howick," she says. And of course, my friend went, "Howick," and the rest is history as well, right? Once you've met everybody and seen the incredible work that everybody does on the ground, it's just, you are a devotee for the rest of your life. And anyway, that is my story. I feel tremendously honored to know Joanne, to know the board, and of course, to know people like Roshni, and everybody, the boots on the ground, right? That we have this bow that connects us all is quite remarkable. That's my story.
Great, Dee. Thank you so much for sharing that. It is interesting how serendipitous things can be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I just realized I have not introduced myself. My name is Margaret Moodian, and I am president of the board of directors for TS Arms, and it's an honor to be a part of this group. And I would like to acknowledge our former president, Anita Lampel. She's on the call as well. And we have other board members, and thank you so much to our guests for joining us as well. So we're going to dive into the questions here, and whoever would like to start first with the questions, go ahead. So since the inception of TS Arms 20 years ago, what changes have you noticed in the sites that we support?
Are you aiming the question at someone specific, Margaret?
Whoever would like to answer it would go first.
Sister Peg, you've been there 30 years. That's a good question for you.
I think I already answered most of it in my introduction. I could talk about our HIV AIDS program, that
Sure.
it came out of the school. I was pretty independent in starting the preschool. I had pretty much free reign using the parish's place and getting women who were unemployed, who were poor themselves, including Roshni, whose face we can't see, and giving them an education for preschool. And you know, in the beginning days of Nelson Mandela, they weren't demanding a lot, like a college degree or anything, but the Department of Education did come and helped us to get things going. And I found other workshops I could send the teachers to. And it just turned out to be so wonderful because the teachers understood the needs of the children. They're living in pretty much the same situation, a little bit higher. They're not in squatter camps, but they're living in government housing. Lots of times their houses are flooded. They don't come, they come to school no matter what, and they don't tell you their problems unless you ask. But they really know how to teach and how to reach the children. So after I got to know my group of teachers, of course, some have even died of AIDS. And when I finally got what I had when I left, that's Roshni and Mavis and Nishi and Nella taking over the school for me. We branched out into HIV AIDS for adults because children are not being born with HIV anymore, but teenagers are bringing the stats up just as high as they were before. So we started a program for HIV AIDS outreach, and I only used my 3 teachers, actually only 2 of the teachers. And one of the teachers, that's Rashni's son, is a nurse, a 2-year nurse. So the 3 of them became the HIV outreach team because the teachers came to me and said, we have all these women in our neighborhood that are HIV positive and nobody is doing anything for them. So once a month, the teachers and the nurse meet with 60 women and we have a meal for them. We have input on HIV/AIDS. We offer transportation to the clinic for those who can't go. If you're very serious, if you have TB, there's a special hospital in Peter Maritzburg. We provide the transportation to get you there. And all during the month, even though it's only once a month, the teachers live within a few blocks of the people we're serving. And they speak the language, especially Mavis, of the people. And many of them are grandmothers living in one room in somebody else's poor house with a bunch of children, grandchildren. And food is becoming, in my mind, I know education is number one. But if you don't have food, you can't take your medication, you can't learn in school. So as the years went on, we tried to get more food for the kids. So I think what's changed in what we're doing, we started out as a preschool. We branched into an HIV outreach. In fact, one year when Tia's Arms sent me an extra $1,000, remember that's worth 20 times as much in South Africa. The teachers wanted to start a program down by the dump, which is right across the street from the dam, which is very nice and beautiful. And at the dump, you meet 9-year-old children who are having sex with Kombi drivers for 10 Rand. They said, well, if we're going to get $1,000 from Tia's Arms, we should start a project for these girls. And I said, I don't think you know that to help those girls, we would need a whole government to fund us. We need something huge to fund us. So the teachers are the ones that, because I'm from America, I don't know anything about what's really going on, but they do. They're the ones who inspire me to do things. And also from the very beginning, we were connected, even before Lorraine was just a marvel. Even before her time, we were connected with Kazimula. We helped to start Kazimula out in Lidgerton, about 20 miles away. And in some ways, we're very needy at our school. But I think the problems that Lorraine has to deal with, especially in getting funding, is astronomical.
Sister Peg, what you've been able to do is just incredible. And we are so grateful for your work and everything you've done to serve. And you've touched so many lives in such a positive way. And I can't think of many people who would dedicate their life of service in that way. So thank you.
Without Tia's Arms, I would have gone home a long time ago.
Would anyone else like to address that question, or would we like to move on to the next? Yes, Lorraine.
Just, as I've said before, Tia's Arms has been involved with Kazimula long before my time. I became aware of Kazimula at the end of 2014. So the difference that I have noted since then is, and this is, I wasn't really involved in the funding requests before then, but the fact that Tia's Arms have been able to support us with salaries for 2 of our childcare workers is huge for our organization. And I think we often don't remember, because we're always talking about our beneficiaries, the children, but you are also, Tia's Arms, supporting those families, those childcare workers' families. And I know that they too are dealing with the effects of HIV/AIDS. So it just extends right out there too. The 2 other things are the marimbas. Tia's Arms sourced our marimba room for us. And to be quite honest, when I joined or when I became involved with Kazimula, and the board at the time decided they were going to spend funding that they'd received, a donation that they'd received on buying a set of marimbas, I was absolutely horrified. I said, how can they do that when we need money for food, we need money for fuel, we need money for electricity? But Tears Arms provided the room and has since then provided funds for the tuition. And that is, I think, the children's home is the only children's home, Kazimula, in the province, could even be the only children's home in South Africa that has a marimba band and that offers marimba, that any child is able to learn how to play marimbas. And the self-confidence and the growth that we've seen from that activity is fantastic. It's also providing Kazimula, albeit very small, with an alternative stream of income when people make donations for the children to perform. So that is a difference that I've seen. And then the other one, which is also hard to give you an image of, but therapy, the funding that we've received from Tears Arms for therapy, the emotional well-being of these children is so crucial. And again, it's something that I've learned being part of the board. You know, when I joined, I was just focused on the academic results that we were getting. And to be quite honest, the children they struggle every day. And a member of the board at the time said to me, there is no way that you can expect these kids to produce any other results because they all arrive here with emotional baggage. And until you unpack that and help them deal with it, you know, you can't expect anything more. And so thank you, Tears Arms, because it's not easy to, you know, other funders asking for funds for therapy, but they won't be able to have a photograph or an image and say, look at the progress. But the general atmosphere at Kazimula today, there's a happy atmosphere. Our children are content. Our staff are also benefiting from the therapy. And that for me is huge because it just trickles down from the top. And Kazimula, as you know, government funding, etc., that we do receive, I'm not sure that they would understand us spending their funding on therapy. So that's just 3 little areas, but thank you.
May I speak to that just a minute? I so well said, Lorraine and Sister Peg. You know, you talk about, your question, Margaret, was about the change that we've seen. One of the very first places we funded was the children before Kazimula. They were street children and they were being fed out the back door of somebody's kitchen with as much structure as that poor woman could give them. But they were street children and they would go back to the street at night and sleep on the street. And then she would feed them in the day. And Tears Arms got to the point, Anita will remember those early days where we started sending funding and then the children got moved out to where they are now in Lidgerton. But thank you, boots on the ground, because this is a real home for these children that before they were sleeping on the street. Fast forward 20 years and look where they are now. Your report of their well-being, their happiness, their therapy, their marimba band, their loving caregivers. This is the juice, the daily juice we need as fundraisers here in the United States. This is what motivates us to continue our contribution and our fundraising for you all. So I just want to take this moment to thank you. You're doing the hard work.
Yes.
And
you are.
thank you for allowing us to contribute.
Yeah.
Great. B, is there anything you'd like to add?
Margaret, just huge thanks to the boots on the ground. I was blown away when I visited Kazi. First of all, the marimba band just blew my mind. I mean, they were amazing, but there definitely is a, there was a sense of warmth and family when I visited, and the devotion of the care workers, and the dedication was very evident, and just warmed my heart tremendously. And I, way back before Kazi, or it might have been just as it was being built, when my daughter was still, I think she was about 3, we would hang out with the children at that little curio shop that was really the children's home. And I think the woman's name was Jenny Uzzle, right, Joanne? And she had she would just, and it was pouring with rain, and all of us were just lying down and sleeping in the middle of the floor of and watching a video with the children. And to think back that it's grown that much. And even Never Neverland, when we first visited many years ago, there weren't as many classrooms, albeit they're containers, but there's more containers, there's more teachers, there's more grades being taught, and very heartwarming to know that we can contribute to that kind of growth.
Thank you, B. So we've shared a little bit about the children at our sites. Any specific stories that you'd like to share or highlight? I know, Joanne, you've seen some from birth to now being adults, if you'd like to share about that.
Thank you. Actually, I was just telling one of our very big and long-time donors yesterday, and she started crying. So I think that this might be the story that I want to tell just real briefly. Hokisa, Homes for Kids in South Africa, one of our first groups in Cape Town, they had a baby with AIDS, or with the virus at least, abandoned on their doorstep even before they opened. And Archbishop Desmond Tutu actually officiated the opening of Hokisa. Anyway, that little baby was nurtured and loved for all those years. And I got to visit him 6 months ago. I had been every time I go to South Africa, I visit him and watch him grow. Mm-hmm. But he is now a 22-year-old skipper on a tourist boat out of the Cape Town harbor. And when you think about that, a baby on the doorstep with the virus, to a 22-year-old who takes his antiretroviral medicine every day, healthy, tall, loving, kind, smart, funny, wonderful human being. This is what we do. We help these babies grow into children or young adults that do well. And he's only one tiny story. We've got over 21 years, we got hundreds of those stories. Thanks for asking, Margaret.
Thanks for sharing that, Joanne. Sister Peg, any particular stories you'd like to share?
I can, well, maybe Rashni can. Maybe she's not there. I can just, okay. Belinda.
How about Lorraine?
Sure. We always like to try and share success stories, and because of, we don't the range of our children, the age range is from 7 to 19, and we never know how long these children are going to be with us. Although since 2015, when we transitioned from shelter temporary care to basically a fully grown child and youth care center, we know that the children are with us for possibly 2 years. The Department of Social Development like to state that no child should be with you for more than 2 years, but the reality is that there's nowhere for them to go. So we've got children who are with us now, have been with us for 7 years, and it's ongoing. But just we had a young girl join us at the end of 2021, December 2021, who she was 16. She was a mother of a 5-month-old baby, and she was brought to us as a place of safety because she had been assaulted by the father of the baby. And what this meant for her was that the baby had to go to another baby's home, and she was with us for a year, for just over 12 months. And it was her final year of school. We had to find a special school for her. When I say special, she couldn't go to the school that our high school, where all our other high school children go, because she had already had a choice of subjects. So we had to find the school that would accommodate that. And she wrote her 12th grade exams, and she graduated high school with a university entrance. I think it's probably the second child in Kazimula's history to do that. And she is currently studying at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She, I think you would have seen her testimony, but what I'm trying to say, she has set an example for the other children, which has been so interesting for us to witness, so that it is possible. She was very diligent. She studied. We tried to support her in getting her to her extra lessons at school. And also we made a plan for her to visit her child halfway during the year. And her focus now, I spoke to her a couple of weeks ago, is getting her degree and providing a better life for her child. And you know, that is motivating for us as an organization to see those values that have been instilled in her. And also for the amazing ripple from that is that the other children know that it can be done, and they are trying just as hard. We have seen a wonderful improvement in their results this year. So yeah, that's the little story that I'd like to share.
That's so great to hear.
Great, thank you.
for sharing.
Wow.
Love to hear about the improvements. Now I'd like to move on to the next question. I'd like to have you share about any new projects that are happening at any of the sites. And I know that we have had a successful campaign for libraries. So Joanne or even Doris, if you'd like to share about the library.
I would love for Doris, she's worked so hard on this project. I'd love for her to answer that question.
Well, we've been working, I guess, since last summer on the library at Never Never Land. And of course, this is one of projects Joanne was involved in. She was working with a young lady that was looking for a service project for her college exam. They came up with the library, and then the young lady kind of got accepted, and so she abandoned this idea. But we took the idea and we ran with it. We put together a presentation. We talked to Never Never Land. They had a space for the library. Before we got involved, they simply had like a little tiny bookshelf that you would ordinarily see in a child's room. And the books were kind of just thrown in there, and they were very old and quite worn from use. So when we got this idea, they had a container. We appealed to some of our donors, as well as at our wine event this past year. We raised quite a bit of money. The folks on the ground, those boots on the ground, the people in South Africa were very, very instrumental in making things happen, finding the contractors and getting the design and the vision. So now where we are, and B was wonderful. B had a very unique role in this process as well, because it's not easy getting funds from the United States to South Africa sometimes, especially in this kind of project. So B stepped up, and on her trip there this past winter, she was very instrumental in making sure that we had funds to do the job. But what they've been able to do, they took this container, we had custom bookshelves made. They have a shelf for the computers. I think they can get maybe up to 15 computers in there with little stools. And they just nice flooring and pillows and rugs. And then also we were able to add an awning outside and put in like a concrete patio area with picnic tables. So we've expanded the library space by having a very nice outside area that will probably be more multifunctional, not just for the library use. But it just touched my heart when Carol, and that's the librarian there, and she wrote, and she said, the kids call it our library. They own it. They're so proud. They're so proud of their books, the space. And it's just, you know, you just take it for granted, but it makes them feel good. And the goal is for them to be able to check out books and take books home. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but this has been, and we're still purchasing books and getting a real program that's based on grade level and being able to give instructions which aid in their classroom learning, but also creates the desire for books and for learning with the children. So this has been a joy to work with. I can't wait till I can get over there and see it myself. We probably should do a grand opening at some point.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's a
that
great
would be
project and the
wonderful.
kids love it. And I can see this as an area that we could expand in, and maybe at some of our other sites on some level.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Doris. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for everything you've done. It's amazing. And just to
Doris.
clarify, I wasn't pole dancing for that money, okay? I did
Oh, we could have gotten more then. We could have gotten more.
it. Maybe.
I'm leaving that part of the story for you to tell me.
Doris, I love hearing your
We get it, I'll tell
enthusiasm. Yeah, B, would you like to share your part of the story and how?
Oh, and of course, it just it absolutely delighted me, Doris, to see your dream and your vision come to fruition when I visited Never Never Land. The library looked great. It was bright, airy, ventilated. I mean, it's a container. It's a refurbished shipping container. And we got the shelves in. So we met, I felt like I was doing a drug deal because of course we met to transfer the money from one hand to the other hand. And, you know, it was the gentleman that had built the shelves, and just wonderful to see. Not all the books were in, but I think it was so special chatting to the kids about the library. They were like, yeah, and we want to, you know, read books about war and Egyptian mummies and the Titanic and, you know, things that I suppose, you know, just interest any child, right? Just these, it was just very, very dear and enlightening. And I know that they were putting the desks in for the computers. And then of course the awning, it gets very, very hot. But no, just wonderful to see a dream come alive, and there it is. And Delani, who is the other librarian or the librarian assistant to Carol, his passion for the project was just so tangible, very, very exciting. But basically, we didn't want to dump all the money that Tears Arms had for the library project. We didn't want to put it into anybody's account because they would have had to pay an enormous amount of taxes. So so I had put it into my account. And then, of course, getting there, we're like, well, how do we get it out? And so it was multiple daily trips to every single ATM in Howick every day, you know, and my dad would say, what are you doing today? Are you doing the money laundering thing again? And he came home one day, and of course, you don't realize that the money translates to even more in rand. So I had these little piles of cash all over the floor and all over the bed, and he goes, I'm not even going to ask any questions. So it was fun and very memorable to be able to support the library. But thanks, everyone.
Yeah, an adventure for sure. I can't
Yeah,
imagine.
right.
Kudos to you, B, for sticking it out.
May I just say, I just want to thank our board. Margaret, thank you in your presidency role. And Anita, thank you for your many years of service as our president. You know, you bring an idea to our board and we talk about it. We weigh the pros and cons, but mostly we want to see our ideas put into action. And there are very few ideas that get turned down. And when you think about South Africa, 20 rand to the dollar right now, you can have an idea. And the transition from that idea to bring it here to the US, talk about it, and make it happen over there that will change lives. That's what's so incredible about our board. And many of the board members are on this today. And I thank you for your cooperation and your collaboration on these kinds of ideas. There's nothing. Sister Peg just mentioned the HIV project that Roshni heads up. That was an idea. Brought it to the board. We funded it. So we do what we can when we are, you know, that's what's so great about being involved with small groups, is that we can stay in touch and know exactly what's going on. So Lorraine can have an idea about a therapy room. We talk about it, we find a way to fund it. And we can keep our fingers in all these pies because it's manageable. We're not World Vision. We're a grassroots organization. We get a lot done, and we're volunteer based. So most of the money we raise goes to our groups in South Africa.
To the dollar.
Thanks for
Thank you,
sharing,
Joanne.
Joanne. Another idea that we had that came to fruition, we started getting into advocacy, and we had the idea for a pen pal program. And this has been going on for a couple years now. And it hasn't been easy. And in fact, at the last board meeting, I was just a little frustrated because it's tough with the lack of electricity and internet. But I just had a meeting. I meet with them regularly, and I just had a meeting with them on yesterday, on Wednesday. And there were a lot of people over there at our school in Willow Crescent that logged on, and they were really excited about continuing the program and had talked about all the students and how they're excited. And one of the students here even reached out to President Obama and got a letter back talking about our advocacy work. So, you know, sometimes it's not easy, but you can't lose hope. And we don't always realize the impact we're having.
Yeah.
Good to be reminded of that. And Sister Peg and Lorraine, hearing your stories and what you've been doing really helps to motivate us as well. So are there any questions from the audience that we'd like to pose to any of the panelists? Oh.
Anita?
Hi, so this is a very personal question, Sister Peg. Are you now retired or are you just back in the States for a visit?
I'm 80 years old and I'm retired.
All right.
And
And you're near Detroit?
yes, I'm in Monroe, Michigan.
All right.
Who's asking?
Well,
Oh,
Anita is
Anita's asking. Hi, Anita.
I'm asking hi because, I was trying to think if there was some way we could meet up in person since I'm in Maryland.
You're in
and
Maryland, okay.
I'm in Maryland, right? Lorraine, we were talking about the issues of electricity, and that reminded me that a couple of years ago, when we were flush with money, we offered you money to buy computers for the kids, or not for specific kids, but, and how is that going?
So they are using them. I think we bought 3 computers. Tatu manages that. The older girls are allowed to keep one in their dormitory, and that's where they work, accessing the internet, which when we have power, they're doing that. And the other 2 are used, there's a homework session every afternoon. So they are being used at those times, specifically for homework assignments, etc. The children don't have email addresses. Tatu's trying to keep, I think, a tight rein on the use of, obviously with the access to the internet. I asked him why the older boys couldn't have one, and he said that was a no-go area, that they need to be supervised the whole time with access to the internet. So thank you. They are definitely, they're very, very valuable. What amazes me still is the kind of homework assignments that the children are given.
Unbelievable.
When knowing that I would say the majority of their peers won't have access to internet, electricity, so they would access off any information off cell phones. But it's still, I'm absolutely amazed. But thank you, Anita. That is something that I've never, I don't think I've shared with Tears Arms, but yeah, they are in daily use.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Thanks, Anita. Thanks for asking about that. Great. So I really am appreciative of all of you for joining us for this panel today. This was just so invaluable, and really loved hearing your stories, seeing your faces. At the end of the day, we do need to raise money for our grantees. And so I put in a link in the chat. If you'd like to donate, there's a link there. And I think that we'll be having a slideshow here in a minute so you can see some of our grantees. And also, so I put a link in the chat for those of you who can't see the chat. If you'd like to donate, it's tsr.org. And B and Joanne, if you'd like to just share about what the money that people donate goes to.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, if you'd like to share about what the donations go to.
Well, I'll just start out with, Lord, it goes to so many things, but basically, just to give you a focus, $250 covers a monthly salary for a hospice care worker or child care worker, approximately. And as Lorraine said, it's the family also of that employee, of that care worker, who lives there part of the time, actually, and they trade off their schedules. So $250 makes a difference to the community. And we fund those in quite a few of our groups. We have now, and Kazimula Children's Home is one of them. The Howard Hospice, now called Midlands Hospice. We take care of one of the salaries of the hospice care worker there, and we also pay for some salaries at Hokisa, Homes for Kids in South Africa. I'll let B talk about the teachers' salaries.
So, along with Tears Arms assisting in providing the basic needs in terms of food, which is also something that we support, our ability to help fund teachers' salaries is, of course, deeply empowering. If we just look at the power of education in and of itself, right, that children then are equipped with some of the basic tools that they can use in life, and it becomes the starting block for bigger things that's ahead of them when they finally become adults. And so teachers' salaries, Never Never Land, I forget how many teachers they have, but of course it's wonderful to walk into a classroom. The teachers are so dedicated and so smart and so good. But us being able to help fund them, of course, is just invaluable in terms of the impact that it has on the children's lives, and especially young women. Right, we know that the power of education really can transform the lives of young women. So, something I really love to support when it comes to Tears Arms.
And that's $100.
$100, right?
Yeah.
Which is, again, $100 a month for a teacher's salary is not a lot, right, in terms of what people spend here in the United States.
And then again, just to focus, because we have a broad outreach, but we try to give our donors a specific thing that they can think about in terms of where their money goes. But transport, it's so important. And we talked to Sister Peg's really the one who told us about these children that come from the township, from out in far away from the preschool. And transport's very expensive in South Africa. And these children would not have a single chance of getting a leg up without coming to places like St. Joseph's Preschool. So we do fund transport for those children to come to St. Joseph's Preschool. Also, Lorraine, the children that are at Kazimula Children's Home, they have to go to school, they have to go to the doctor's appointments, they have to go buy food, all this sort of thing. And they need a new car, actually. They need a new bucky, they call it. They have a van, but they also have a smaller car that needs a lot of work. And it's hard to raise money for transport because people want to, they want to feed the child. But it's the whole picture. We have to support all of the needs and all of the resources in order to get these children to the places they need to go. B, I'll let you talk about I see Sister Peg and Lorraine smiling at our slideshow. I didn't know. Thank you, Megan, for putting this together. I didn't know which pictures were going to show up today. So this is fun. Sister Peg, you must be having some nostalgia here, looking at these pictures. And Lorraine, there's pictures of you. But yeah. B, I'll put it back to you on $50. What $50 can do.
What $50 can do. In terms of the food project, Joanne, is that specifically what you wanted me to speak about?
Yes.
Well, or both, right. but especially, well, the extent of HIV as we know it, it's really, really important that the children that we support get nutritious meals. In fact, one of the things that Tears Arms does is we are able to obtain the weights of the children that we support. In fact, these were shared at our latest board meeting. And these weights come from Howick Hospice, right, Joanne? So some of the children that,
Yes, yes.
yeah, that have HIV, and there are a lot of them, we're at least able to assist with the food program. And the food parcels are $75, right, Joanne, that will feed.
Oh, excuse me. I'm
yeah.
sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
$75 will feed 20 children, correct?
Yes, for 5 months.
For 5 months. So this is a donation that goes a long way. And believe me, they are very, very frugal with the preparation of meals and making sure that what lands on the children's plate is tasty and nutritious. And so really, really important. Very often, this is the only meal or cooked meal that these children will have in a day. So I know that at Never Never Land, the principal, Zandile Koza, her parents are there preparing the meals every single day at the school. So that might well be the only meal that the children have. So that $75 does go a long, long way.
Great. I think we're running short on time here, but you get the idea about how our money goes and how well it is spent. Really appreciate you all being here. These are true angels. Lorraine, seeing in those photos, you're very photogenic. It's kind of like, oh, who's that movie star with our kids?
Right?
I have to share with you that those were a couple of years ago. Tomorrow is my 60th birthday.
Wow.
So
Happy birthday.
that was definitely a
Wow.
couple.
Happy early
That
birthday.
was before COVID.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Yeah, it was.
Thank you.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the manager of Kazimula that shows up in some of those slides did pass away from COVID. So it's still very real.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And
Thank you, everybody
This
who
was a
joined us
great
today.
event. It was a pleasure to see everyone, really.
Wonderful.
Thank
Such
you,
a
Margaret,
pleasure.
for
And
moderating.
thank you, Tears Arms.
Thank you,
Please
Margaret.
visit California first before you visit Maryland.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.